All right. Looks like we got some people already logging in. We're going to wait just a minute while we get everybody logged in. And then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Looks like we got quite a group today, considering it's a Wednesday at the end of July when everybody's on vacation. So I'm glad you guys are able to be at work today and join us, or maybe you're joining us from the beach somewhere in Mexico. I don't know, who knows? It could be a good time for you. We are really excited to share today. So I wanna welcome you all to Webinar Wednesday. Dave and Ed have a great program that they've set up for you. It's a kickoff to our Survivor series that we're gonna be doing here at Homebuilder University. Today, we're gonna be talking about protecting your profit margin and the 5 strategies to reduce construction costs. So if Dave, you'll go ahead and switch to the next slide, I'm gonna go over just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this webinar, so you can revisit again. It'll be on our website in the events section under webinars, and it will be available this afternoon. So if you need to revisit it or wanna share it with anybody, feel free to do so. Also, we are going to take questions during the webinar, but we will not take them during the webinar. We will reserve them all for the very end. So down at the bottom, you'll see 2 speech bubbles with a Q&A under them. Go ahead and put your questions in there, and I will read them out loud to Dave and Ed, and they'll answer your questions at the end of the webinar. And as always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Feel free to contact me through the chat function if you have something that you need taken care of or assistance with during the webinar that is not a question directly for Dave and Ed. But with that, I'm really excited to kick this off to Ed Hauck and Dave Burleigh to share with you a little bit about how to protect your profit margin. So I'm gonna kick it off to you guys.
Morning, everybody. Before we got on the call, Dave, Emma, Jane, and I kind of looked at the whole list of attendees. We have a huge list of attendees, and I know almost all of you. There's 5 pieces we're going to cover. Dave and I talked about this. We've been getting a lot of calls from builders. Chuck has a webinar seminar tomorrow on survival. So Dave and I just wanted to kick off with a few ideas. It's real simple, easy stuff. And for those of you who've been in the industry for a while, if you might recall, only a few years ago, we did the same exact thing. The market is getting crazy. As rates go up, it's really super important for us to realize that so is the affordability is going down. So the idea here is to try and figure out how you can take some points out of your direct construction costs. And the whole idea is if the market keeps getting crazy and the affordability and mortgage payments go up, how do you survive? How do you keep selling? I'm not going to get into the whole marketing side of this, but we've been looking at what's been going on in the market for the last couple of months, and Chuck will review this tomorrow. The bottom line, traffic's down. A lot of the builders we're working with now we're talking about the traffic, and what do we start doing to lower our costs? So Dave and I, this is real easy. He and I do this all the time with builders. We live, breathe, and sleep this stuff. There's basically 5 different pieces we're going to cover. And we'll basically go back and forth. Dave and I, we're in sync all the time, doing this literally, the last few months with builders. A year and a half ago, all we worried about was lumber. And then the big thing was schedules. And now the whole world's changing. So the 5 things we're gonna look at are really, we'll talk about design centers, structural inclusions, trade discussions, estimates, and trade labor. As in the last couple of years, we just started, we were so busy being busy, we kind of forgot about going back to the basics. We started including things, we started offering things, start including structural options. Trades have had all the high cards for the last few years. As start orders are slowing down, trades are looking. Then I'll get into a deep dive into estimates and some trade labor issues. So the next piece, Dave, what's the next slide, please? Design center review. I looked at, as I was going through the list, we have a pretty significant list of builders that have design centers, and some of them I've worked with you on design centers. So really what we're going to start looking at on design centers is what are we including? Dave and I were talking about this. As time went on, we were kind of either just didn't pay attention, or our manufacturers or suppliers came to us, and we start offering a whole lot of different pieces. In level one, or our base grade, whatever you might call it, we may start having a whole lot of flavors and colors. And what Dave and I were talking about, they're not all the same price, by the way. So I don't care what trade or supplier or whatever it might be. If I have a whole lot of pieces in my different groups, I want to start knowing some more clarity about what's that pricing. For example, if I have, let's pick on granite for a second. If I'm offering 10 different slabs of granite as my base grade, how many of those are really truly the same price? Dave and I were talking about, something as simple as faucets. We may have 5 different flavors of faucets. Are they truly the same price? And Dave and I believe more than likely they're not. Dave, any comments on that?
Yeah, so the big areas that I'm seeing this in definitely are countertops, cabinets, and plumbing. So we want to, I don't want to just look at what the group costing is to me. I actually want to start asking my trade partners to show me the actual cost of everything within that group. So that I can identify, do I have one cabinet door? Do I have one faucet, or one line of granite or quartz that's actually a higher price, which has been driving my group pricing up? I want to make sure, especially in my base group, that everything in there is truly the same cost, that I'm not doing any blended pricing in that base level, so that I can keep my base as tight and streamlined as possible. We see this a lot now with plumbing, in that a lot of builders have gotten their plumbing group together into, it's just a line of faucet. They're all the same price. We all know that the difference in finishes matter. A satin nickel and oil rub bronze, a black, those aren't the same cost in reality. So if we're bundling those together into a plumbing group one, then I know that I'm overpaying every time I use that satin nickel or chrome. So we really want to challenge our reviewing back through the design center, going back to our basics of, 07, 08, the last time we went through these exercises, and make sure that we're retightening those things up and getting rid of some of that fluff and moving them into upgrades where they truly belong.
Dave, describe blended average for me, please.
Yeah, so if I have a base group that has, let's say, 3 cabinet doors and a handful of colors, when I'm doing that bundled base group, my cabinet company is just going to take those different varieties within my cabinet. They're going to theoretically average out the cost. They're really going to average to the high end of what that is, so that I can have just a one price fits all for that group. But if I really look at that blended average, I have a wide swing where I'm overpaying. If I have 3 doors, I'm probably overpaying for 2 of those doors every time I sell them. And then when we're looking at that blended average beyond just the cost, I also want to look at what my upgrades are. If I'm selling a lot of the cabinets in that blended average that are actually lower than the average, but I'm virtually never selling that one that's weighting the cost of that group, I definitely need to get rid of that style or colors from my base group so that I can get a true blended average of the things I'm actually selling.
100% agree. The next piece on this is really the reduced offerings. There is a cost of inventory and a cost to offer everything. Some of the builders on the group I know personally very well during the products shortages lately have done a good job of that, but don't stop there. There's tons of times that we're offering too many products. To Dave's point, there's certain products that are selling and there's other ones that just are not. So get rid of the stuff that's not selling. First of all, if it's not selling, it's probably not going to be available anyway. So help yourselves out, help them out. We do this all the time. I was working with the builder recently, and they had 47 window SKUs in their product line. how many of those SKUs do they really need and how many SKUs were causing trouble? So think about your offerings, in the design center. What do you truly need to offer? Because there is a cost to it, cost for your suppliers to offer it. For example, you really talk to your, I like talking to manufacturers. There's a lot of good information from those manufacturers. Find out what's really going on, and try to reduce that stuff. It's more to carry. It's more to worry about if you have inventory issues and getting product. Any thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah. So on reducing our offerings, one, I totally agree with Ed that even if you're not selling it, there's a cost to even carry it. When we offer that certain faucet or light fixture or whatever the case is that we never actually sell, I'm paying for it somewhere. Nothing is free. So if my supplier, my installer, someone is making sure that I have access to that product, even though I'm not selling it. So I am paying for it. Two, and more importantly, kind of at this point, is we've really created decision fatigue for our home buyers. And as interest rates continue to go up, the market's getting more volatile. We need to do our best to try to reduce the fatigue for the buyer. They're going to be stressed out. They know that they're getting in at a high rate. Their rate's going to fluctuate during the build process. So let's do them a favor also and start purging some of these offerings that we have that just really aren't being selected at any point, and give people a much more streamlined, realistic shopping experience in your design center, to be able to more quickly run through, make their decisions with the same care for decision number one as the 100th decision, instead of showing them 300 different flooring options and 80 different cabinet options and 50 countertop options. And by the time they continue to work down that list, and you've probably seen it in your upgrades, as they go deeper into that list, the decisions are less likely to be good margin decisions, because they're already fatigued and now they're just making quick decisions instead of thoughtful decisions.
Absolutely. And it's just cluttering up a design center with useless colors and choices that people really don't want doesn't make any sense. Next thing we'll talk about is really create low-cost, high-margin upgrades. It's hard to make money in design centers these days. Buyers are shrewd, they're shopping online, but we can look for different ways to create nice margins by doing little things. Anywhere from, there's things that actually have no cost, but we can charge as an option for them. It all starts to add up. Dave and I were talking a little bit about strategy on tile, trim, things like that. And also don't forget that you can also start bundling packages. Chuck talks all the time about the auto industry. The only way to get certain packages is it comes in bundles. Why do we like to bundle? Bundles are great. First of all, you can create value with bundles, including different things that kind of make sense. Instead of, what I like about it is I don't think the buyers feel like they're being nickeled and dimed because you're getting all this as a package. I think you can do a feel good on that. Any thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, so across the board on really those are three different items to look at. The first is the no cost, low price upgrades. I've done this a lot in the past on things like interior doors. I can get 5 or 6 different interior door profiles all for the same price. That doesn't mean I need to include all of those in my base house. I'll include 2 in my base house, and I'll take my 5-panel and my 1-panel, the doors that I really know people are going to want, that don't cost me anymore, but I'm going to put a small upgrade on those just so I'm getting some revenue out of what I know that the buyer is really going to want. I'm going to do the same thing when I look at my low cost upgrades. So we want to try to not give away tile patterns. If we have multiple different trim profiles that we're using, we don't want to just give those away. Those should be good upgrade opportunities to just make a little bit of easy profit off of something that we know the buyer is going to like. And then in the packaging, I've always found that people love to spend money in their bathroom. They're going to spend it on cabinets, flooring, wall tile, countertops, even their plumbing fixtures. But I always had a real hard time getting people to upgrade bath accessories and vanity lights. So we ended up taking those and packaging them together and just including them. We would batch them to the plumbing fixtures. Yes, my retail cost went up a little bit on my plumbing fixtures, but then we were driving profit dollars to two cost categories that I typically wasn't seeing any upgrades in, and ultimately got to turn those into, while low margin dollar upgrades, we are still able to really increase the frequency of getting those upgrades.
I like the value upgrades too, Dave. I mean, instead of being, again, the nickel and dime it creates the value from that perspective. The other thing is I really, it's hard to sell anything that has the Home Depot effect in play. Home Depot effect is they run down to Home Depot. And by the way, the products aren't the same. Products that we're buying are definitely not the same as Home Depot. So once you start to bundle, it starts to at least get rid of some of that Home Depot effect, and I'm able to actually make a fair and modest margin on this. The next piece, really, and I think in the last couple years, with escalating prices going crazy, we just got crazy with what Dave and I call structural inclusions. These are things that builders, as time went on, have just started adding, including. As sale price has risen, it's very easy to say, let's include this. Let's include structural, patios in the back, covered patios in the rear. We got oversized islands that came into play. We got extensions that came into play. Tons of windows. Our elevations started getting kind of crazy. So take a look at your whole building envelope. Dave and I do these structural reviews all the time. Dave, I just noticed, you change the slide, please. There you go. I was just on a roll, wasn't looking. But the structural inclusions can get pretty heavy at times. Elevations, I mean, the elevations we're always under pressure to keep up on the elevation side. But if we have to start getting our price down, do I need to add one or two more base level elevations? I don't need to make them big, square, chunky, ugly boxes, but we got really heavy on elevations. Do we really need some of these pieces? Start looking for the high cost and can I create value? Working with the builder that they had awesome front columns, but the cost of each column was insane between the stone, the taper tops, and then they had way more than they needed. It's just little things like that. Watch your money on the structural inclusions. Dave, some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so on the first one, if we all think, for all of us that were around in the last crash, it was so much harder for us to find our savings because we hadn't gone through this specification creep that we've had over the past couple of years. I would have loved in Phoenix in 07 if I could have started cutting covered patios and islands and all of these things, but the reality is we didn't have that stuff, wasn't included at the time anyways. Where now we do have the opportunity that because of the amount of specification creep we've had, this is a really easy place to start and say, okay, let's start tailoring back on some of these really expensive structural inclusions. And not just the stuff we can see, but the stuff we can't even see. This is a great time to look at going to 24 on center non-bearing walls. It's a good time to revisit our joist layouts, make sure we're getting the right series of joists. There's a lot of opportunities on the structural side. And then from the elevation standpoint, totally agree with Ed. We're seeing beautiful elevations being built, but there's a very high cost for a lot of these elevations. And in a lot of cases, we can create that new kind of intermediary elevation that's not as nice as it was. It's a little bit tailored back, and then option those things back in. I'm working with a builder on the East Coast right now that had dormers on everything. Looked amazing, very expensive to the cost of the elevations. So we removed all those dormers and still offer them. So the elevation no longer includes it, but the buyer can choose to add a dormer. And they've actually continued to have a really good take rate on those dormers that now aren't sitting in base house. They're actually able to turn a normal structural option margin off of something that a year ago was just included in the home.
Dave, you hit a couple points that I want to make sure everybody heard and understood. We've been so busy being busy. As we travel around and work with different builders, we find that a lot of our design team, our purchasing team, our internal operations team hasn't found the front door or found a job site in a while. Get out and start looking at what you're doing. Dave just pointed out to some of that high value framing and engine type of things like that. Are you putting too much into a house? More than likely you are. 2 foot on centers, 2 foot interior non-bearing. There's a lot of waste in there. And we say this all the time. If I'm ever going to a sales and marketing function, I never ever hear a marketing person or salesperson ever say that our parallels are bigger than anybody else's in the industry. Just look for the waste on your site. Take it, like Dave said, even the thing like the dormers. If I look at these things, do I really need all that on the elevation? I love playing with elevations, but there's a certain point in time that we tend to put too much on it. The next piece is trade discussions. Trade discussions, the market's changing. And in the last few months, when start orders stopped piling in, and all of a sudden the trades are like, do I have the proper? I might have too much capacity, but I don't have enough work. So things are turning. So to start thinking about, how that's going to look, but how's that going to work? So the other thing is that we're starting to see a little bit of ease off the volatility of material prices. I'm starting to see a little bit of easing off of the volatility on the labor prices. And if you're not really out talking and looking, you're not going to find that savings. Some of the builders we've talked to have actually said, because of what's going on, we have a zero increase policy. And right now it's time to figure out how to turn that tide. Before, increases were coming through like wildfire. We were seeing anywhere from 3/4 to a point almost per month of increased volatility. Now is the time to start talking to your trades, talk to your manufacturers, talk to your suppliers, find out, start looking around. If you think about it, we have was on with a builder yesterday on a Zoom talking about the same topic. We have about 35 trades in every single house. So go back to all the trades and ask them what can be saved. Go back to your kitchen, your supplier, manufacturer. Challenge them to go find you 10%. Challenge every single trade. There's 35 of them. I guarantee you all 35 trades are going to come back to you. And once you have the conversation with them, I'm not trying to take money out of their pocket. I'm trying to continue to sell. Right now, they're seeing the start orders drop off. Now's the time to start tackling that. Spec changes, tighter, better materials, better buying. Before we were just trying to get product at any cost. Now we got to really look at how to reduce that. Any thoughts on that, Dave?
Yeah, so I think it's important here that this initial step, I don't want to dictate to my trades. I want to collaborate with my trades. So if I choose that I want to save 10%, 8%, whatever decision I need to make for my organization of what I need to see in my savings on this initial round, I want to go to the trades and ask them, how can you help me do that? What can I do better or what can I do differently that's going to help you and allow you to lower the cost to me? I want to show that partnership, that I want to share the burden. And exactly what you said, Ed, I want to see, is there specifications I could change that they'd be able to get me some better pricing? Is there something wrong with my schedule? Are they getting a lot of dry runs? Are they having a lot of callbacks? What's happening? Because all of those things cost me money. So I want to work through those things with them and find out, what can I do? What could we do as an organization that would allow you to feel like you could lower your pricing for me? Faster payment's a huge one. cash flow is going to continue to be a problem for our trade partners. So can I incentivize them to pay them even faster? If I'm paying once a month right now, can I go to weekly? Can I go to more than one time a week? And generally, when we do that, we want to just point blank say, I'm happy to take you to weekly pay, but I'm going to need you to give me X% off of the cost of every purchase order. We want to collaborate with them and find inventive ways that we can together make things better for ourselves. But I don't want to push all that on my trade partner. I want them to know that I'm a part of this with them. And I want to work together to find how we save that money. If you don't have a trade council yet, now is a great time to consider a trade council, so that you're meeting with your trades once a month and you're really getting into these philosophical discussions on what can we all do together to lighten the burden that we're all going to face during this down market.
100% agree, Dave. I mean, the faster payment's huge. In some cases, if I'm expediting my payment, I might be able to find smaller trades that have less overhead because they cannot wait 30 days on money. So they're working for smaller, quicker pay builders. So a lot of different things to look. Buying direct is another thing. You know, sometimes as we're bundling and buying through people, can I buy direct? By the way, in direct buying, like Dave and I will talk about drywall all the time. If I'm buying direct on drywall, how hard is it to buy direct? And am I saving, what's my savings on the material? And depending on who you talk to, it could be anyway from 10, 15, 20% or more material. Not to mention, depending on how you're buying or who you're buying from, you might have a better credit rating than your trade, by the way. So I might actually get a couple points off just on that. So at this point, all things are open to talk about. The next one is estimates. Before I move on, any last comments on that, Dave?
No.
Next subject, estimates, is Dave's wheelhouse. And I'm going to lead off on just saying eliminate bid management. Bid management is production's friend. It is an absolute nightmare to get any clarity to the bottom line. Bid management is when I'm paying a vendor to supply a product. You know, as we go out and look at waste on sites, I'm stepping over product all over the place. And the superintendents almost always tell me, that's not my drywall, that's the drywall guy's problem. That's not my lumber, it's the framer's problem. He supplied the lumber. Well, guess what? You paid for it. By the way, you paid for that drywall, you paid to have it delivered, you had to pay for it to have it installed, and then you paid to have it taped. So I want to get out of bid management. There's several percentage points potential on that. So I'm going to let Dave take over on estimates because that's literally his wheelhouse.
Yep. So the next thing we want to do is we want to focus on not just creating our estimates, which are going to transfer to our purchase orders. We want to make sure that we're very detailed on how and where our material is going to be utilized. So if I'm going to go out and buy drywall direct, or I'm not just going to have those sheets of drywall show up for my drywaller. I'm going to make sure my drywaller understands how did I do my estimate. I'm going to make sure that they know that we don't cut full sheets in closets. We're going to go through the rules with them to make sure that they understand how to use my material correctly, so that they don't need the waste that they're used to having. And as part of that estimating, we're also over time building up this database of all of our parts and pieces that go into the home. I want to use that database to aggressively be shopping for my materials, and it's going to help me investigate buying direct. If I have this database and I can shoot off, here's my drywall SKUs, and I can shoot them to 4 or 5 different suppliers in my market, that's going to allow me to very quickly start the process of doing those bid comparisons. And then the last part with our estimating, a lot of our estimating is geared towards reducing waste. Waste is a great thing to tackle because that's money that we've spent for no reason. We've literally spent thousands of dollars on a job that's all going in the dumpster. So as we go through our estimates, we want to make sure that we're monitoring that waste over time. A great way to do that is if your superintendent's doing inspections on the job site every day, is I want to ask him to, on top of telling me, did they frame it right? Did they do this right? I want to know what my waste looks like for every cost code so that I can track what am I still having in waste that I can become more aggressive on. I can track trends on, are there certain trade partners? If I have 3 different drywall installers, which one of them or 2 of them is more prone to have the extra waste? I want to be able to monitor all that stuff so that I can, in my purchasing environment, I can have intelligent conversations with the trade partner to explain to them, I still need to lower my cost. And I've noticed over the last 30 jobs that you've done, we've continued to have a problem with waste, or we've continued to have problems with material being misallocated the way that, compared to the way that we requested it to be done. Really getting rid of the bid management and controlling your own destiny on your purchase orders is going to be the most impactful way that you're going to be able to quickly remove cost from your homes. It is a process. It does take some time. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of heart to get into it. But long term, this is going to guarantee then that you're using the right materials and the right jobs. Buying direct, especially in that process, then lets you control what your cost actually look like, so that you can start comparing material versus labor and making better decisions moving forward. Anything to add?
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right. So what I want to do is make sure, Dave and I do this all the time, looking on the job sites, watch how they're using material, look at this, look at the dumpsters, look in the dumpsters, how much material is laying around. It's just insane how wasteful, especially if you're going from bid management, they're extremely wasteful. If you just go from bid management to unitized pricing, generally speaking, when Dave and his team does an estimate, we're usually seeing, what do you think, Dave, 10 to 50% of extra material that's being sent on site on average?
So it varies greatly from where we started. Our average is generally between 8 and 12%.
Okay. And by the way, that's 8 to 12% that you're paying for that's just being wasted to be delivered, installed, everything. So it's actually the juice is worth the squeeze to go out and look at that. Any of you internal operations team, get out, take a look, work with your superintendents. By the way, superintendents, when we do the training all the time, what we get out of them is they become snowblind. Snowblind, for all you people that are not from up north, is you just get used to seeing garbage and stepping over it, walking on it, full dumpsters. You get blind to the waste. The last piece, and I think this is a huge piece right now. This is really we're seeing a lot of this changing in the marketplace. Any of you that have been to all the seminars, and myself, Carrie, a few others have been doing seminars a lot lately on construction or advanced superintendent, scheduling, all that stuff. One of the things right now, the tides are changing on trade labor. Starts are way down in the last 2.5, 3 months. Well, the trades are feeling that. So I want to be the best recruiter. We talk about all this. We talk all the time about being builder of choice. So if I'm going to be the builder of choice, I want to be the best recruiter. How do you become a best recruiter? One of it is have easy, simple processes. You know, your superintendents, your field team are always out. Look around. I was working with a builder yesterday, and we were talking about, how to start getting better pricing. So we have in his market, he's got a couple of the nationals in his market. I said, go start driving job sites. Go look for names on trucks. Have an easy way for your superintendents to be able to communicate that to purchasing. Purchasing then start doing the follow-up. Get out there. So this particular builder, he's having a problem with his painters. Painters giving him increases. Like, you have to have a zero policy. So this morning, I got a text that he went to another job site, called the painter, and guess what? He's got a painter coming in this afternoon. That painter is looking for work. So you got to be out there. You got to be the best recruiter. The other thing that I want to touch base on is make it easy. So anybody in purchasing that's in the group, do yourself a favor. Get an email that's really, vendor@builderwhatever.com, whatever your builder name is. and be very good. Get the superintendent's business cards, hand them out. Be the best recruiter. Be part of your homeowner association. Be active, attend events, sponsor. So I want to be always on the lookout for trades. And by the way, in the last couple of years, if I had been doing that 4 years ago, I would not have had the problem that we had the last 2 years in trade capacity. One of the things that we talk about all the time is the 80-20 rule. So I never want to give any one trade all of my work. As we consult with builders, and especially recently on schedules, all the problem trades, all because that trade has all your eggs in one basket. If anything goes wrong with that trade, let's take what everybody looks at every single night is the lotto ticket. However, it's up, whatever it's up to now. My HVAC plumber contractor who gets that, is he showing up to work on Monday? He's not. So I want to think about that 80-20 rule. Always be metering out no more than 80% to one trade and no less than 20% up to one trade. When I do that, I'm creating a little competition. And so anybody in purchasing, you got to remember, if you think there's a sacred cow, find out. So usually as we start doing this in an audit, I find all the sacred cows in operation. Well, Joe, the plumber, golfs with the owner every Sunday. Well, if the owner found out the true cost of what's going on, it's probably not a sacred cow, by the way. So really think about, how do I become the best recruiter in the market? By the way, the other thing after you recruit, so as we're working with builders, after you recruit them, you bring them on, have a good onboarding process, as well as how do I onboard and actually help the field bring this trade online. Just don't go hire them and dump them to the field. Best recruiter have the best process and systems. Dave, I'll get off my soapbox for a second and let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think a big thing here with trade labor is, as we're recruiting new trades, we need to keep in mind that our current trade base is a good source for recruiting also. I've had a lot of luck with finding good electricians via my plumbers and HVAC guys. These guys work for multiple builders. They work with people that you don't work with on different job sites. And they're a great resource to tell you what trade partners do they have a lot of success with other builders, as well as they're going to help recruit for you. If my plumber is my number one plumber, he's doing 80% of my work, we have a great relationship. Then if I ask him for help on, hey, give me some electricians that you've been impressed with, he's also going to now become my recruiter with those electricians and help sell why they should be working with us. And it's another great reason, again, for if you're having a trade council already or starting one, that's a great forum to bring those things up and say, hey, we're in the market to try to bring on a new electrician or a new heating and air guy or flooring, whatever it is, and present that to the group and hear their feedback of who they've had success with in other areas and who they haven't had success with, and let them help build that trade base with you.
Absolutely. So going forward, if you've been too busy, we hear all the time, we're just so busy. If you've been too busy being busy, start thinking about how you start becoming the best recruiter, the builder of choice in your market. To Dave's point, there's a lot of ways to recruit. Driving around, trade trucks are all the time. Drive through your competition. If you got in that bad habit because you got busy, now's the time to break that habit. Go find the trades that are looking. And by the way, the people I'm talking to that are finding these new trades, by the way, the prices are lower. They're coming in hungry for work. All the other trades have had that cost creep over the last year and a half. And I get no time in my career have I ever been had no way of stopping cost creep. Now is the time to start turning that back around.
So the other thing here, the other thing to keep in mind is as we get rid of bid management and switch over to unitized pricing, the ability to bring on new trades is much faster. Because I'm not going to go find a couple of electricians and have to give them a bunch of my plans for them to get bids for me. I'm going to give them that database for their parts. And all I need them to do is tell me what they're going to charge me per part. So I can, instead of asking for them to do days worth of estimating, I'm asking them to do 15 to 30 minutes worth of filling out my spreadsheet, so that I can quickly apply them across the plans and know if they work or don't work.
Absolutely. It's so much easier to find out what that pricing is. The builder I was working with yesterday has sole source on lumber, which makes me cringe. Sole source on lumber. On top of it, the lumber company owns all the lists. Now that he's starting to think about unitized pricing, it's so much easier. They're much more apt to give you a number when I can talk specific pieces. What I told that builder is take the 15 most popular pieces of lumber and go shop it around, and then go ask your current lumber company. I mean, they've been doing him a service. I'll give him credit for that, of managing that lumber list. So again, the juice is worth the squeeze. Figure out how to start taking control over that. Anything else to add, Dave, or otherwise I'll ask Emma Jane to open up for questions.
No, I think I'm good.
As usual, we're right on target, right on time. It's almost quarter of the hour. Emma Jane, you want to open up for questions, and then we'll start talking about some of the other business items you might want to cover?
You're muted, Emma.
Thanks. I was really good about not having any background noise while you're talking. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and fill those out in the Q&A bubbles down at the bottom of your screen. We would love to go ahead and answer some of those for you today. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for you guys to ask some questions, I just want to share with you some of our survival workshops. We announced our first one, I think at the end of last week, and we sold out yesterday afternoon. But we will be presenting that one again in September. That's going to be led off by none other than Chuck Shinn. He'll be sharing his wisdom tomorrow, and then again on September 8th. And then we're going to do a real deep dive into the topics that we discussed today on August 18th. We'll have Ed and Dave Burleigh really go down deep into each one of those topics to help clarify any issues and give you some other tips and ideas to make sure that you're really working hard to reduce those construction costs as we enter this, again, uncertain time. Looks like we do have a question, so I'll go.
And Emma, those are 4-hour classes, right?
Yes, so those are 4-hour classes. The times listed on the screen are mountain time. So it's 9 to 1 mountain time. East time is 11 to 3. Central time is 10 to 2, and West Coast time is 8 to noon. Okay, I have a question here from RJ. Our market has a single source lumber company. The other yards of size are all owned by the same umbrella. Thoughts on bringing on multiple small yards?
So RJ, I like small yards. Right now, currently in my market, I've got every large lumber company, a lot of good sized regionals in my market to choose from. I've always had really good success with smaller yards. You're talking in some cases to the owner who might be the purchasing person who's buying the lumber. If you have one of the large nationals, I'll just say BMC, BFS, 84, Carter, doesn't matter. Each region, you're relying on how well that their purchasing person managed that last month's buy. In some cases, they bought big in May and June before it dropped. And guess what? You've got all those $12 2x4s in the ground. I want the $5 2x4s. How do I get them? So if you're unitized pricing, one of our builder groups does a really good job, has probably a lumber list of about 80% of the lumber in every single house. 2x10, 16s, whatever it might be, 2x4 9s, and so on. That lumber list gives them the ability to go out and buy and purchase, okay? The other thing is, some people don't understand that some of the lumber yards are willing to travel more than you think they are. So there are some markets that are sole source, and more often than not, I want to start finding some of those smaller, to your point, smaller privately held, and will they work? So RJ, does that answer your question? Hopefully it does. And if it's RJ, I think it is, feel free to reach out.
you're muted again, Emma.
No more questions at the moment, but if you want to switch through the slides, I can go through a couple other slides while we're waiting for some more questions. And Ed, you might want to go ahead and switch off your video. I don't know why your internet is kind of unstable. So as your video and your talking aren't matching up, and I'm not sure if everybody can hear you clearly. Okay, well, just real quickly, I want to go over some of the services that we offer just so you are aware of how we are here to help you. We offer our rebate program through builder partnerships, as always, and we offer data transfer with ECI Mark Systems, MyTech, and Builder MT and Cova. Also, we offer our training services online and our live courses, webinars, and on-demand training. So make sure if you're looking for additional training beyond what we're talking about today, we do offer those things for you. Some fun things that we do is Ed's been doing a lot of private training, working with builders where we're doing on-site managing for profit, advanced superintendent classes. We've even done some virtual private trainings where we've done a negotiating class for a builder and his team. We also help with surveys. So if you want to do a survey to see how you are rated with your trades and your employees and your customers, we do surveys in that regard as well. And then we also have consulting where we're doing remote, on-site, or coaching. So feel free to contact us for any of that stuff. And we also have our builder groups. We still have some spaces available in our builder groups. So if you are looking for a builder group, make sure you connect with us on that. And you've met two of our consultants. We have a great team of consultants. So if you need anything in particular, I think the next slide kind of goes over some of our consultants. Oh no, here's our schedule. So here's our schedule for the fall. If you're looking to get in some of our classes, superintendent is starting to fill up. So make sure if you are looking to get superintendents into a training class before 2023, we have our next one coming up October 6th through the 8th in Chicago. We also have managing for profit that will be right after that. And we have our production management class, which we're bringing back again. It hasn't been, I don't think we haven't done production management live since 2019. So we're excited to get that one back. Ed and Chuck and Emma will be at that one. And we have our guest speaker from the University of Denver who speaks at that event as well. And then of course we have our online workshops. They're 4-hour workshops. I mentioned the survival series earlier. And then we have our builder of choice workshop, product design and value engineering workshop, and our variance control workshop coming up in the fall. So be sure to get registered for all of those. And then
does Dave have something coming up? Does he have a estimating workshop or?
Not at this point. We don't have one scheduled yet. We are looking at getting an estimating workshop put on the schedule, but it's not on quite yet.
Okay.
Okay. And then join us again next week. We will be talking sales management. The market is shifting. Is your leadership and sales team ready? Again, it'll be at 10 o'clock on Wednesday next week in Mountain Time. So 9 o'clock Pacific Time, 11 o'clock Central Time, noon East Coast Time. And it's presented by New Home Sales Plus. So we look forward to seeing you again next week. And for those of you who will be joining us tomorrow, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet, make sure you get those registrations in because the next 2 workshops will fill up pretty quickly for our survival series. But with that, it looks like we don't have any more questions today. So you guys must have done a great job getting those questions answered. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Ed or Dave directly. You have Ed at shinnconsulting.com or Dave B as in boy at shinnconsulting.com. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Dave and Ed.